Tony had been standing by the window for about half an hour. In the last half an hour, he lit many cigarettes and finished them wishing. Then his eyes were looking somewhere in 20. When the mind comes to the bitter moments of the present again and again, connecting the sweet moments of the past, then it starts speaking a new memory trap by jerking its neck and keeping its eyes somewhere far away. Tony's father, Donny, was admitted in this hospital for the last 10 days. His condition was deteriorating with every passing force. So the whole day, while sitting in front of his father, he would try to put on a fake smile on his face. But yes, as if the scale of his patience was about to overflow. All the moments from childhood till today were roaming in front of his eyes. And he was feeling extremely helpless. It was almost 1:0 in the night. It was raining heavily outside. Silence spread far and wide. Standing by the window, Tony lit another cigarette and slowly began to take another spectacular drag. Only then did his eyes go to a streetlight on the side of the road, some distance away from the hospital. The falling raindrops looked very beautiful in the first light of the streetlights. Tony lost his mind, for a moment in the prison of those drops. The next moment, Tony saw the same woman in the light of the streetlight. Seeing that woman, Tony felt a shiver. At midnight, when even Perinda was not visible on the road in torrential rain. All of a sudden, a woman dancing awkwardly under a UA streetlight was taking him by surprise. The woman was wearing a white hat, due to which her face was not visible. Wearing white gloves in her hands, she was dancing with her fingers in the air, wearing a short skirt and a white bodysuit. Tony was watching the mysterious-looking woman intently. She felt that she was making a letter by moving her fingers from place to place. After dancing for a while, she pointed her finger at Tony and then suddenly taught. He was very scared because of the woman pointing her finger at Tony, and he closed the window with a jerk. After some time, he again opened the window slowly and peeped. Then she was seen dancing right in front of his window. Tony ran to his bed, trying to deny the truth seen with his eyes. After a short struggle, he fell into a deep sleep. Then he was standing on the side of the road, smoking a cigarette. Then the same woman started dancing strangely in front of him. Tony was being mesmerized and getting bigger and bigger. As soon as Tony reached right in front of the woman, he raised his face. The face of that lady was clearly visible in the light of the streetlight. His face was white and parched. After all, she was so engrossed inside as if she was the only one in her place, and there were dark black marks around the eyes. Instead of the hood, the skin cut by the blade was visible, around which thick black blood had accumulated. He glared at Tony with his terrifying tealy eyes, and Tony was trembling in his place. Now there was no courage left in him to stop a riot. Using all his strength, he had returned to his room running. Deep darkness spread inside the room. As soon as Tony reaches the room, light spreads through the blue color in the room, and another one, Tony's father Anthony, starts dancing, moving his fingers just like the same lady. Tony was out of breath, seeing his father doing such a strange dance. Gathering all his strength, he shouted loudly, or Papa Donny shouted so loudly that his own voice broke his sleep. He got up nervous and sat down. There were drops of sweat on his forehead. Throat was parched with thirst. He got out of bed to drink water. So saw that it was 5 in the morning. It was all a dream. Once I check my father, does he want anything? Otherwise he goes to father's sheep and touches them, but his body was completely cold. System Dr. Woe God help hum hearing Tony's voice. The doctor rushes there and can't believe Mr. Anthony Rotok was absolutely stable. I don't understand how this happened. But after listening to Sir Daly, his no more doctor, Tony retreated by taking support of the wall. He was deeply shocked. After performing the last rites, he was thinking something while sitting in his room. Suddenly he remembered the dancing lady. Then his facial expression started changing. Seeing my father dancing like this and his death, is there really any connection between these two things? Makes them dance under the streetlights. That lady also probably made the same shape with her fingers. A for High Nathany, then she showed her finger towards me. Doesn't it mean she wanted to tell me something? It flashes in my mind a lot. Cried Tony, trembling with fear. What is the mystery of this lady? Who is he? How did he know that father was going? Don't know how many questions started coming in his mind one by one, so it was difficult for him to stay in his house even for a moment. He immediately got out of his car and drove out of the city, driving at high speed. made of wood on the banks of a small lake outside the main city of Serbia. This small farmhouse was Tony's favorite since childhood. Whenever he had to spend time alone, he would come here and spend his days. Her father had gifted this hut to her on her birthday. Tony's car had stopped outside the farmhouse. After some time, he was turning the pages of an old album when he started feeling as if he was hearing someone's humming near the glass of the window. With slow steps, he went near the window and started listening. Tony began to hear the indistinct voice of a woman speaking. Frightened, she removed the curtain, and seeing the window, her breath began to swell. It was a message written in blood. If death is to happen, then his eyes went towards the road. Frightened, Tony looked at his hands. Even today, that lady was making some shape with her fingers. And Michelle, no, please, don't. Everything has changed. Leave my Cal, who is my daughter-in-law. Tony buried his face in his knees and cried for some time. She didn't even realize when her eyes fell while she was crying. Then again in the dream he saw the same lady. This time she was not dancing. He beckoned Tony to him by beckoning with his hands. Tony started moving towards her like a ghost at her behest. Coming near his ears, the lady whispered something in English, which meant, "Madu, I will take everything from you. Death is the ultimate truth." "Let's go with me," saying this. He started pulling Lady Donnie's hand. Donnie pushed him away with all his might and freed his hand and started running. Suddenly, Donnie lost his sleep. It was 2 in the night, so he picked up his phone in panic and dialed Michelle's number. But there was no response from the other side. Wiping the sweat on his forehead, he dialed the number once again. "Why wasn't you picking up the phone, Michelle? You know how nervous I was?" Michelle is no more Tony. She is that Tony's phone dropped from his hands and fell down on hearing this. The dancing lady had truthfully said that she would take everything from him if he had no one else in his life except his father Anthony and his fiancée Michelle. After the death of both of them, Tony had no purpose left to live. Many times he felt the urge to commit suicide and go back to his father and Michelle. He used to roam from this street to that street in search of a dancing lady, smoking cigarettes all night, but perhaps we know death ourselves. We cannot add death. After that day, that dancing lady was never seen by Donnie. Somewhere deep down, Tony knew for sure that the dancing lady was out to find his next victim. Will definitely go out on the roads of Serbia once again. Tony is now warning the whole world about the dancing lady through his blog. If you like this story, then subscribe.